Okay, Dr. William Forstchen is my guest today, and he is an author and college professor and expert on EMPs, a dangerous weapon that can take out our whole power grid and make life pretty miserable for everyone. So, you thought things were bad during the pandemic, it can get a lot worse. So, we're going to discuss what an EMP is exactly, the likelihood of one occurring, and what we can do to prevent it. So, you won't want to miss this one. Well, first of all, I actually wanted to ask you, how do you pronounce your name? Because I've heard it pronounced two different ways. I've heard Fortune, and then I've heard like Forstem or something. I don't know which one is right. You didn't correct either person.
Think Forstchen. Forstchen.
Okay, so it was Newsmax that had it wrong, and that was a bigger thing. They said Fortune. They kept saying it, and you didn't correct them.
No. It was Newsmax. So we didn't have time for it to get corrected.
Okay.
Just
Okay.
call me Bill after that. All right.
Okay. Well, welcome, Bill. So yeah, explain to my audience your background here. You obviously have a doctorate from Purdue in military history, correct?
Yes, and the history of technology.
Yeah. And tell me about your dissertation a little bit. It sounds interesting. Indiana's African Americans go to war.
Yeah. My doctoral dissertation, long story short, I fell into this wonderful topic. It was the African American regiment that was raised in Indiana, in Indianapolis, in 1863, and was pretty well wiped out at the Battle of the Crater, July 20th, 1864. So that was a 2-year effort, buried in the National Archives and state archives. I loved it. And I've done a couple books about it since. A young adults novel called We Look Like Men of War, which actually got an award for me. And then a really kind of gritty book called The Crater or To Make Men Free. They changed the title. And that's about that experience at the Battle of the Crater.
Okay. So, and then you've written some books on the Civil War. And then, so how did you fall into being the EMP expert?
Got 2 hours? All right. In 1990, way back in 1991, I was a graduate student. We had a 1 in 500 year event in Lafayette, Indiana. An ice storm blew out the entire grid. We were talking about the high tension lines collapsing. There were sections of Indiana that were without power for over a month. So I'm in a university town. We lose power for 11 days. And within about 5 days, things got really swirly. People really started, somebody had to have a generator, and suddenly people are knocking on their door. Can I charge this? Can I do that? They had to put National Guardsmen on the power trucks. People were literally barricading the trucks if they pulled onto their street. So that got filed away. 10, 12 years later, I'm well aware of EMP, studied it in grad school, and I kept trying to write this novel 1 second after, and it finally came to me at a graduation ceremony in 2005. I'm sitting there with all my doctoral robes on. It's 90 degrees. We're sweltering and dying. And I looked at the audience, my students were small college, and I suddenly hit, I'm going to write about my town, our town gone bad. What would happen in a small town if the power went off and didn't come back on? So that was the start of it. Book was published 2009, became a bestseller. It's still selling like crazy 14 years later.
Yeah. And there's sequels as well. Is there 3 in the series?
Yeah. The second book is 1 year after, picks the story up a year later. Then The Final Day, several years after that. I deliberately titled that because I want to tell my publisher, I never want to do this topic again. It gets to you. You start immersing into this, and you're going to hearings and you're giving speeches. But as said in the movie The Godfather, they made me an offer I couldn't refuse. They pulled me back in again.
And there you go.
So the next book, 5 years after, is coming out August 25th.
Oh, so there's another one.
Yeah, there's 4 of them.
This will be the last one.
It better be.
Okay. Well, so explain to my audience what exactly an EMP is.
Okay. EMP, shorthand, electromagnetic pulse weapon. All right. It's created by lofting about 3 small nuclear warheads above the Earth's atmosphere. Blow them over the eastern United States, central United States, western United States. They're not that powerful as nukes go, 40 to 60 kiloton, about 4 times the size of the Hiroshima bomb. But when they detonate, it sets up an electrostatic discharge called the Compton effect, which was first clearly seen in a study done in 1962 when they blew one in space and it shorted out the power system in Hawaii. So that Compton effect cascades down to the Earth's surface at about the speed of light, overloads, sets up an electrostatic discharge that overloads the power grid, and everything starts shutting down. It is catastrophic. It's not tinfoil hat. There's been several congressional studies. All of them say the same thing. The bad number is if we were ever hit by that, upwards of 90% of Americans will be dead a year later.
That's
Yeah.
crazy. And this is but there is, like you said, the one in Indiana, that was natural, right? I mean, that's also a possibility as well.
Yeah. That was just an ice storm that just went catastrophic. Everything's shut down. But with an EMP, when it hits, it blows the grid out. And I know 90% sounds this is crazy, but I'll ask you a question right now. Where are you located?
I'm in Scottsdale, Arizona.
Okay. Oh, great. Can you imagine that on a July day?
Yeah, I know. I'd be screwed.
Where do you, okay, my question is, where do you get your water?
It's from the Salt River Project, which I think our water comes from Colorado. I believe it comes all the way down from and we have this, the Colorado River comes all the way through the Salt River Project into some man-made lakes and then through the filtering system or whatever. So, yeah.
And what happens if there's no electricity?
Right. And isn't that like most of America? I mean, I guess unless you're getting it from a well on a farm or something.
But even then, you're using electrical power.
What if you have the old school bucket or whatever?
Yeah,
the cartoons and stuff.
Like an old grandpa's out there hitting the pump.
Yeah.
But, what happens is, I call it Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You're going to lose your water immediately. Within several days, that's going to be bad. Second, food supply isn't moving anymore. Average town has about 20 days worth of food on hand from what's in your freezer to what's pulling up in a truck. That's gone. Medication. Your pharmacies are gone. They're no longer taking shipments. Nursing homes would be an absolute nightmare. I mean, you have a large elderly population in Arizona. Can you imagine them without power, even for a week, without air conditioning? And then, of course, disease sets in and command and control. What happens in your major cities, which are bad enough as is right now? Imagine if there's no longer a police present at all. Things start going very bad.
Yeah. Again, you said it would take 5 years to recover, and even then it would only be 20% would be back, which is
good. You read that. Yeah, when I was at a conference, about 500 people, and it's about this. And they, DOE study said 5 years, only about 20% of our power grid would be restored. And somebody quipped, well, die, I guess it averages out. It's a hell of a bit of arithmetic, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, where do they get 90%? Who are the 10% surviving, and how are they doing that? Can I be part of that 10%?
Yeah. Well, a lot of it's going to be luck. Being in the right place at the right time with the right food supply. I'm talking about this every day, and I'm telling people I have at least 1 to 2 months emergency supplies on hand in every house. That you got food, you got water, something you can cook with without poisoning yourself if you're inside the house. And yes, you might have to think about, am I going to be secure? That came out of a couple great congressional studies. First one in 2002, guy named Dr. Peter Pride. He became my mentor. He was the true expert. I deferred to him. Sadly, Peter died a couple of months ago. And I think part of his death was simply he worked himself to death trying to get legislation passed, and it would stall every single time in Congress and go no further. A do nothing government for years.
Yeah, well, of course, we can't do anything. We can't agree on simple things. But
Yeah.
so, I mean, what is the likelihood of an EMP being used? Because I heard you say something that was an interesting quote, like eventually all military weapons are used, and it would likely be in our lifetime and likely would be against the United States. So those are not good factors.
Uh, yeah, I'm asked that. I'm asked that all the time. What's your prediction? Well, the first great military technology, we'll say, was catapults at the time of the Greeks. Greek general once proclaimed, "What use is valor anymore? Now that we got these machines." Every single major military innovation, poison gas, World War One, nuclear weapons, World War Two, they finally get used. Sooner or later, somebody's going to do it. It might not even be against us. A hot spot I look at is Pakistan and India. They're on the edge all the time. They both have nuclear weapons. Might the temptation be there? My big worry is North Korea, followed by Iran. you know?
Yeah. What about, yeah, because I think, I mean, I would say, I think some people would think China, but to me, I say China, no, because aren't we their biggest customers of everything? If they take us out, who's going to buy all their crap?
What happens to Walmart?
Yeah.
Good point. China has never really been a military expansionist across 2,500 years of history. They are contained. They used to be called the Empire. No, because the other thing is mutual assured destruction. If China ever did that to us, we would do it to them. Nobody wins. I worry about the third world players. What's his name in North Korea wakes up one morning, finds out he's terminal, and he figures, oh, what the hell? I'll finish the day by taking out the United States. And he could do it. They have the capability right now to do it.
And what about Russia? I would think Putin seems to be on that same kind of wavelength of just got nothing to lose.
Wow. I reset a bit here, Bill, because I've been talking about this, but Russia doing us, I don't think it would ever happen because Putin's own generals would coup him. They would stage a coup if he said, "Hey, let's go take out America today." It's like, you're crazy. Again, Russia does us, we do them. So I don't see the big players of Russia and China doing it. Again, I worry about the third world players.
Yeah. Well, and you had something interesting too that you talked about. There was a security expert for the World Trade Center, and he predicted a plane would hit it.
Yeah.
And and is there? I mean, we're talking about this now. Is there going to be any sort of warning that a missile is coming? Do we have a missile defense system that would detect this? Like, how much time would we have, or would it just be like you wake up one day and the power's gone?
These are great questions. EMP can be defined as what the military calls an asymmetrical first strike weapon, meaning it's a whole new way of launching a warfare. Great example, 1941, people were predicting the Japanese might put 6 or 7 carriers together and go big. Nobody had ever done it before. We even had reports right up until December 7th that the Zero cannot be flown off of a carrier. Well, we found out. And of course, if you went back to September 10th and you pointed at the sky and said, well, they could turn that into a cruise missile. No, that's crazy. It will never happen. The sad thing is, with asymmetrical strikes, you wake up the day later and go, my God, I should have seen it.
And is it very likely that they would, like with the World Trade Center, I know they did like, what was it, like 4 different attacks. So they would need, like you said, 3 or 4 missiles to get the whole United States?
Yeah, the worst case nightmare scenario is 3. Though, even if you just launched one and detonated it, say, above Pennsylvania, that would blow out the entire eastern grid. There are five major grids in the United States between eastern and west. Texas is an independent grid. Yeah, the grids, and there are five major grids in the United States. I'm getting a notice saying your internet connection is unstable. Are you still hearing me?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm unstable, but I'm still here.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So different grids. And then I guess I don't think people understand, not only would this just take out the electrical system, but I think all our electronics would potentially be like, even if we had a solar phone charger, our phones wouldn't work. And then like, would cars work? What if you had a really old car, or at what point does technology for cars affected by this?
Variable studies on this. I've heard as high as 90% of cars made after 1985 will go. They'd be shorted out because of the computers, to a low of 10%. So let's say you have a car that still works and it's 5 o'clock and you're in rush hour and 10% of the cars turn off. What happens? Then where do you get your gas? The pump's
Right.
not working. How do you get through all this mess of traffic? Even if your cars work, you'd have the range of what's simply in the gas in your tank, and that's it. And then you're stranded too.
Wow. What about I just saw when I Googled EMP today, I saw this thing, a device called an EMP shield that they're selling. Is there any validity to that? Does that actually help protect some of your electronics or your home?
Yeah, I've talked to some people just within the last week about that. Yeah. Shielding against EMP is not that complex. It's upgrading circuit breaker systems. Remember when you bought your first power strip 20, 30 years ago? It's obsolete now, all right, because we're upgrading these things. You have to upgrade the grid. That will cost money. Dr. Pry, my mentor, said it costs $3 to $5 billion to get a good start. I'd say 30 billion. But 30 billion is chump change now, isn't it?
I think we sent that to Ukraine this morning, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's just quick change. Yeah, we'll send you another 1,000 missiles. It's only 30 billion. Upgrading the system, hardening it, and my other big bugaboo that I worry about is we're not making the components for our electrical grid in the United States. Take a large transformer in a substation. From the time the power company orders a new one to delivery takes up to 2 years. Guess where it comes from?
China, right?
Right. So we don't have a strategic stockpile of key components that if something bad happens, we can put them in quickly and rebuild the system. We're just stuck out there. I'm calling up China if our phones work and say, hey, can you help us? Well, sure. Get back to us in 5 years.
Yeah, that's going to be too late. So we don't have any emergency transformers that we know of that the government has on hand for something like this?
Very, very limited. I still teach college. I have a student who was actually a lineman boss. I mean, he was managing line crews. And we talk a lot about this. And he said, Bill, our electrical system, at least here in North Carolina, is held together with spit and prayers. The average component in our electrical grid is 40 years old. We're pumping our electricity in systems built in the 70s and 80s that have not been upgraded since.
Wow, that's concerning.
Yes, we don't have the reserves to quickly rebuild if something bad happens.
And did we have the technology though, if we did upgrade this or rebuild it to make it more stable, to protect against something like this?
All right, I don't want to get into politics. Right?
Yeah,
we're not going to go there.
Okay, well,
people wind up. Okay, yeah, you take a sip, I'll take a sip.
No, I mean, I
got a Van Gogh glass here.
Yeah, we can try to avoid politics, but sometimes it's you can't. I mean, it's like you said, if Congress, they've tried to bring legislation. I mean, they can't agree on anything. So how can they agree on trying to fix this?
The previous administration, yeah, okay, I'll say the word Trump. He took it seriously towards the end of his term. Um, I knew some people in the White House, and they were like, "This has become an issue. He is dead serious on this." He mandated to DOD, DOE, and all the other groups to do a comprehensive review, and then 90 days after the election, after the second administration began, they were to present a comprehensive plan to upgrade and harden the system. Well, guess what happened when Biden came in? On the first day, the executive orders included killing that report. We are spending over $1 trillion on so-called clean green energy. We're getting a lot of windmills. There's not a dime in there for let's go back and harden the basic components, starting with the transformer down the street to the substation to the wiring and everything else. We're not doing it.
Oh, that's really fascinating. You bring up a good point though, because that is something that's a lot of people are proponent for, is the green energy.
Yeah.
Which is good. I don't think anybody's against green energy, but we also still need the regular energy, regular electricity. And even if it's powered by windmill or solar or whatever, it still needs to come from wherever they're getting it, harnessing it from, to our homes, which would be through the transformers and stuff, right?
Upgrading, you know what it is? It's not sexy. It's not news item. It's nuts and bolts, hard work to replace older systems with newer ones of the basic electric grid. It's not smart energy. It's Congress ran through a $62 billion bipartisan bill talking about improving energy. Read the report, not a dime in there saying, regarding EMP, we're going to do this, this, and this. Oh, we're going to make more supercharger stations for electric cars. We're going to do this. Excuse me. We're going to do that, but not the basic nuts and bolts. That's not sexy. It should be.
Yeah, it's interesting because obviously people were really freaked out with the pandemic and all that stuff, and that was a very mild thing comparatively to what it could have been. But there's also besides the EMP, there could be cyber attacks, financial attacks, all this stuff. I feel like it's just not. Or what about? Could somebody just poison the water supply? What if somebody? The water place by us, like, it's just like a fence. You could easily hop that over and put who knows what in there, and that would just kill off tons of people.
There's a substation within walking distance of my house. If I decide to go crazy, truly crazy one night, I would just go down there with a high-powered deer rifle and some jacketed rounds. I'd shoot some of the transformers. The oil then leaks out, and I would shut my town of Black Mountain and Swannanoa down for a week with half a dozen bullets. It's being done. It was done in Washington State back in December. It's done in North Carolina, a town in eastern North Carolina. Somebody shot up the substation. They were without power for a week, affecting 100,000 people because they couldn't get the replacement parts in quick enough to bring it back online.
And you said it would only cost about maybe 30 billion to fix this issue or make a big dent in it.
Oh, all right. A sleight of hand here. I'm selling you the start. What I have the term, I coined the term lifelines of recovery. If you took 10% of the power distribution system in the United States, hardened it, bought it up that could resist a major EMP, that will be a start. But we would need to be continuing investing across a 10-year period to do the entire grid. But 30 billion would be a darn good start, at least until all the administrators got in and got their change and hired 1,000 bureaucrats to manage it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. And what about that other stuff that I mentioned, like the cyber attacks and the financial? Is I mean, that's kind of related, right? Because that's
Yes, it
another
is.
way that they could attack us. Are we prepared for those kinds of attacks at all?
Better prepared. Again, I teach at a small college, Montreat College. This isn't a promo for the college, but we our major area is becoming cybersecurity. I mean, our kids are going through that program, and when they come out the other side, they're walking into $100,000 jobs. So I sit in their lab occasionally and watch what they're doing. Yeah, we're starting to get better at cybersecurity issues. Uh, that's a constant war. I mean, you sit in their control center, and I'm saying, what's this? What's that? Oh, that's another attack. Oh, this is an attack from Iran. Oh, here comes one from Russia. We're blocking this, we're blocking that. It's a massive game of chess going on 24/7, 365. We're at least doing something better there.
Yeah, I mean, it was just interesting. I don't know if you saw that news story the other day about the kid that leaked all the high security Pentagon stuff, and now he's going to prison. I mean, how does this kid, who's I think he's 20 or 21 or
21.
something, yeah, how does he get clearance to all this stuff that's supposed to be like our top military secrets? He's just a kid.
I I wish you could tell me. I don't know.
That definitely seems concerning, though, too. It seems like there's a lot of areas that we are not prepared for. Like we're arguing over these issues that seem, like you said, they're maybe more sexy or whatever, like, wind energy and things like this. But I mean, there's a lot of things where we get caught with our pants down, which I think the pandemic kind of showed us a little preview of that.
Yes, it did. You know, picture it this way. Holland has hundreds of miles, these big dikes. If you've ever been to Holland, you know what I mean,
No.
dams and all that to hold back the ocean. You just need a leak on one spot to break open, and you got serious trouble. So yeah, we build a dam to hold these things back, but one leak like this, that 21-year-old kid, how I wonder too, how the heck did he gain access to all that material? He's most likely a computer nerd and a whiz who understands it far better than I do, and he really shook up the entire system.
Yeah, it's frightening. And it's frightening to see, like, when we did have that pandemic and there was a little bit of panic and people were buying up toilet paper. I mean, you saw like just a preview of that chaos. And if it's something like the electrical grid goes down, I can't imagine that chaos would. I don't think we would last very long.
We would. Uh, Sandy, the 2012 storm that hit New York City. And I used to live right in that area when I was a kid. And within 24, 48 hours, you were seeing the newscast of lines around the block to Starbucks to try and get in for 15 minutes to charge your cell phone. The cell phone grid still worked. But remember on 9/11, it overloaded. It was a lot more primitive then. So yeah, it's almost incomprehensible how many things would just go offline immediately. Your cell phone doesn't work anymore. Your car might not work. You go to the market, people are looting the market. It's a very bad picture.
Yeah. So doesn't don't these corporations have a stake in this to make sure that if they're going to make money, they're going to need power, and isn't that something that they should be concerned about as well?
Yeah, when I first got into this, starting around 2005, I remember going to my first statewide hearing, along with several other people, and the room was packed with Duke lobbyists who were smiling and shaking hands and everything else. And they were basically saying, yeah, he's a nice novelist, but he's crazy. Now, last year, I gave a major talk to a couple hundred Duke Energy Power, the consultants and the workers and the guys handling security. They, in fact, were using my book as a textbook. They're taking it seriously. But again, it's funding. Do you want to pay your stock holders off a 4% dividend this year? Or you want to say, sorry, can't do this. We're going to be doing infrastructure security.
Hmm.
Yes. Yeah.
So it all, again, it comes down to the cost, which, I mean, again, the government would but that's definitely something that they could pass if Congress could agree on this and recognize this as a threat. They could get the funding, and it really should be more their role, anyways.
It should be.
Yeah.
Several times we did see bills going through the House of Representatives, but then it went into committee with the Senate. One senator, Mikowski of Alaska, killed it. Why? Didn't have the perks she wanted. Didn't have the perks for her.
Yeah, because isn't a lot of those bills there's other stuff in the bills that helps their districts or whatever, the pork or whatever they call it, right?
Yeah. I mean, you're dealing with a bill like that, and then there's a little rider attached that they're making a museum to honor the Munchkins of Oz in some place. And seriously, they did. The weird things that get attached. There's a museum to Lawrence Welk. In North Carolina, there was a museum to pottery, teacups. What the heck does that have to do with the other things?
Yeah.
Back in the 90s, person I know, Newt Gingrich, he's a good friend.
Yeah, you guys wrote some books together, right?
Yeah, and they finally got through killing the idea that the president could have a line item veto on bills. All right, he was killed. The president, you either take the bill or not. You cannot just simply, as president, go and say, this is ridiculous. No, I'm not going to build a highway to nowhere out in the middle of whatever. Doesn't happen. So the port continues.
Yeah. So what we could do, besides obviously trying to protect ourselves, like you said, stock up on canned foods. I think you mentioned having a water filtration system. Yes. Could people lobby their congressman or congresswoman about this, try to bring a bill to this?
I'm telling people now, go to your state reps, because we're seeing action on the state level. South Carolina, I've done several visits and talks with them in the last year. Excuse me, too much coffee. Your state reps are a heck of a lot more responsive. If 50 people got a hold of a state rep and said, this is important to me, they're going to listen. Whereas a congressman would just be, yeah, okay, all right. Get your state reps. South Carolina is doing things. North Carolina is starting to do things. Texas is starting to do things. Start at the state level, and then just, work like hell next year when we go to the next federal election.
Okay, yeah, and I'm trying to do my part by having you on the show to talk about this and educate people, because I've heard about this too, and I just didn't know a lot about it. So it's nice to kind of learn. I mean, it's scary. It's really scary, but I feel like if we know about it, then we can prepare. I mean, that's a lot of bad things in the world. Not talking about it doesn't make it go away.
Yeah. Okay. Quick funny story.
Okay.
Shortly after the book came out, I did a tabletop with my college. This is what we should be looking at if there's an emergency. A couple months later, daughter and I are sitting on our deck, and we're looking out across the mountains of North Carolina. Huge thunderstorm. All right. Suddenly, the entire valley went dark. Not just local, the entire valley. My daughter goes, "Daddy?" I said, "Does your cell phone work?" "Yes." "Okay, it's not EMP, it's the thunderstorm." And about 2 or 3 minutes later, my phone rang. Picked it up. It was an administrator at the college. "Is this it? Oh my God, is this the EMP?" I said, "Yeah, I think we're screwed."
Yeah, because you would know, because your phone wouldn't, nothing would work, right?
And then I said, "Hey, is your phone working?" "Yeah." But I got half a dozen calls for the next couple hours of friends. And my husband's in the basement, and he's pulling this out and that, and he says this. No, it's just an electrical storm. So yeah, that's my favorite funny story about this. We got to live our lives. We got to enjoy ourselves, our kids, our girlfriend, everything else. Don't make this the obsession, but it should be out there. You should be thinking about this and doing some basic planning. One other thing, I tell everybody, have a God bag. Get out of Dodge. G-O-D. You can buy a ready-made one or make one yourself. You should have a couple of days, like at least 2 or 3 pints of water, some energy bars, a solar blanket, uh, an Uzi, and a 50 caliber hunting. No, just yeah, no,
Uzi might be a tall order. I think then
yeah,
again,
yeah. Just I get upset with the prepper survivalist types that are just too far over the top. You know, they sound like Peter Lorre. Remember old Peter Lorre? I have this gun, and it's 50 caliber, and it's a machine gun, and somebody that's crazy. Just a basic God bag thrown in the back of your car might make a difference. You get stuck in an ice storm, EMP, whatever. Out in Arizona, you get some wicked storms out there. Uh, God bag, it's simple. Throw it in your car, and also have some silver, just a couple of silver dollars stuck in the bag.
to barter with.
Yeah. Let's say some guys figured out a hand pump or something to get some gasoline out of his tank, and somebody goes up waving $100 bill, and you go up and say, "Got a couple of silver dollars here. You want to trade?" Which one's he going to take?
Yeah, that's true.
Because that will be real currency again.
Or yeah, food would be currency at that point. Yeah,
Yes.
food and water. So, well, scary stuff. I mean, so the 10%, because you say 90% will perish in
Up
the
to
first.
90% would perish. Yeah.
Yeah, the 10% that. So you said some of it could be luck, but some of it also could be like if you live kind of in the country on a farm, like you might be able to be. There's a lot of people that live off the grid, right? Isn't that a thing? I mean, that's like a thing that people could be self-sufficient potentially.
I'm in the mountains of North Carolina. It's rural, and yes, a lot more people are thinking off grid or at least marginally or having backup systems. I feel bad for the ones who get the Gen whatever transformer and it's powered by propane. How long is that going to last?
As long as however much propane you have, yeah.
And most people have like 20 gallons or 50 gallons, lasts for a couple of days. Having just, again, basic fundamental supplies that you can get through a month or two. You're not out on the street. You're not begging for stuff. You're secure in your home with your family. And one other thing I always tell people to do is have a rendezvous point, because 8 to 10 hours a day, our kids are at school, you're at the office, your spouse is out doing their thing. If something goes bad, you all got to know where to go. We're going to meet at such and such a place, and then we're going to get back home from there.
Right. Now, what about like if you have a car in a parking garage, if you're underground, would that
Higher probability.
That would offer protection?
EMP is a line of sight event, meaning, if it's within the line of sight of the detonation, 200 miles up. But yeah, some studies have shown the survivability in sheltered areas, things like that, could go up astronomically. You might very well get your car without any problems if you're or if you're on the north slope of something that you don't get the direct hit. It's an indirect hit. Your probability could go up with that.
Okay. Well, that's another thing. But again, it's like you said, some of this could just be luck, like where you parked your car, how much gas you had in there, and those kinds of things. So it is interesting. Is there any talk of making your books into a movie? I feel like that would be a good movie, a good disaster movie to.
Yeah. I'm talking every week with my agent and the producer and the director. Current problem is the Writers Guild is going out on strike on May 1st, and that's screwing up everything. I don't want to get into Tourette syndrome moment. Let's just say Hollywood is an interesting entity to deal with, and I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, for absolutely. Well, that'd be cool though if they could get that. But otherwise, there is the 4th book coming out in August.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else you have to promote?
Promote? No. I had a very close friend. He's was one of the key nuclear fighting strategists in the Navy 15 years ago. Uh, he did the forward, the afterward for the first book, 1 second after. He was over here, uh, spent the night. One of the first things we did was we turned off Alexa, pulled the plug. We don't want her hearing what we're going to say. And, we talked. Now, he's very good with classified. He doesn't talk about it. But at one point, we looked at each other and it was like, we'll go crazy if we keep talking about some of this, all the different scenarios. And it was like, you got to get on with your life. You got to enjoy it. If it happens, it happens. And then there'll be a terrible day after that. But when I did 1 second after, I did the forward, the usual, hi, want to thank my agent. I finished that forward with the statement that 30 years from now, I pray that I'm just remembered as a crank. Didn't happen.
Yeah.
That Forstchen guy, I remember his books. All right. And then my daughter grew up safe. And when we have grandbabies someday, they're safe. Let's hope that's the way it is.
Yeah. Or let's hope that we can all get the preparation that we need and fix the grid and get all and be ready so that if it does happen, that we're ready for it. That would be better.
If we upgrade it sufficiently, our opponents might think twice.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Right now, they're thinking, boy, we could really screw them over good.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and then those other things too, the cyber and the financial, and I mean, got to be ready for everything. I feel like that should be there should be some doomsday people in government. Maybe there are that are predicting these things that are trying to get us ready for this kind of stuff. Cause you're right. I mean, it could have like nobody saw the World Trade Center thing coming. Like not very few people predicted that.
Well, that's a great example. I'm pretty sure he was head of security for Goldman Sachs, and they were constantly told, shelter in place. Something bad happens, sit here, we'll get to you. He was preaching for the several years that he headed security there. He was preaching the exact opposite. We will get the hell out as quickly as possible. He saved upwards of 1,000 lives by saying immediately, within seconds, go, we're getting out. He disappeared, going back up to get one more team of people out, helping some people. That guy, there should be a statue to him. Mm-hmm. Think of all the lives he saved by thinking ahead and say, react, don't just hide in the corner and hope it ain't going to happen.
Yeah, no, that can make a huge difference. Well, thank you so much for doing this. I always end each episode promoting a charity or a nonprofit. Is there something that's that you'd like to promote here at the end for a charity?
I give regularly to St. Jude's. They have one of the highest ratings out there as nonprofit for the amount of every dollar that goes directly into what they're doing. Very small administrative costs. So St. Jude's is tops, and also, of course, the Humane Society.
Yeah, I've promoted both of those charities several times. So if people have some extra money after they buy all your books, they should throw some money into those charities.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Bill. It's been very informative.
Hey, thanks. It's been a great interview. It's great questions. Thank you.
Great. Glad you enjoyed it. Thanks so much. I'll talk to you later. Once again, Dr. William Forstchen has several books available now, a whole series on a fictional story about an EMP happening. The first one in that series is called 1 Second After, and the fourth one is called 5 Years After, and that's going to come out this August. So this is the part where I usually tell you to follow the guests on social media, but I don't see that Dr. Forstchen has much of a social media presence. I do see a Twitter, but doesn't seem very active. So you can still support him and this interview by sharing it, liking, and commenting on social media at YouTube. And of course, make sure you subscribe to our show. And if you can, please give us a rating or review wherever you watch or listen. I appreciate all your support. Have a great day and shoot for the moon.